The House will come to order. Members will be at their seats. The clerk has opened the roll and you may record your presence. Please rise to give your attention to our guest chaplain, Pastor Vernon Welkner, High Prairie Church, Leavenworth, guest of Representative Proctor, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Representative Croft.
I am also the president of the Kansas Society of the Sons of the American Revolution. The costume I'm wearing is a pastor's costume from the 1780s. Will you join me in prayer? Almighty God of grace, who inspired the hearts of our patriot ancestors to set forth the independence of these United States, we give all glory and praise to you, the author of our liberty and the sure defense of our safety. We invoke your divine blessing on this assembly of this day and ask that by your grace we may be enabled to build wisely upon these foundations of freedom and peace, that we may hold our liberties in due subjection to your law, and in all things seek that righteousness that exalts a nation. Kindle in our hearts the pure flame of sacrifice to the needs of the people of the state of Kansas, and grant that the fires of our patriotism may shine as beacon lights, O Lord, and may point the ways of men and women to live in gracious equality before you. For you have shown us, God of grace, what is good and what you require of us, to act with justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with our God. In the name of our almighty Lord, I pray. Amen. To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, Regino Wassinger is going to start because people just showed up. So, okay, Wassinger is starting.
Has every member had the opportunity to record their presence? The clerk will close the roll and record the attendance. Messages from the Senate, the clerk will read.
Senate non-concurrent House Amendment, Senate Bill 215, requests a conference has appointed Senators Baumgardner, Erickson, and Sykes as conferees on the part of the Senate. The Senate non-concurrent House Amendment, Senate Bill 313, requests a conference has appointed Senators Peterson, Clays, and Hawk. Senate non-concurrent House Amendment, Senate Bill 331, requests a conference has appointed Senators Longbein, Fagg, and Holscher. Senate non-concurrent House Amendment, Senate Bill 343, requests a conference has appointed Senators Hildebrand, Gossage, and Petty. Senate non-concurrent House Amendment, Senate Bill 446, requests a conference has appointed Senators Peterson, Clays, and Hawk. Senate non-concurrent House Amendment, Senate Bill 453, requests a conference to appoint Senators Hildebrand, Gossage, and Petty. Senate non-concurrent House Amendments to House Substitute for Senate Bill 261, requests a conference to appoint Senators Kirshen, Reichman, and Ware as conferees in the part of the Senate.
The Speaker recognizes Representative Helgerson.
Mr. Speaker, I was asked to delay my motion, and I'd be happy to do that so the body can look at it next week. Thank you very much.
Final actions on bills and concurrent resolutions, the clerk will read.
Substitute for Sub-House Bill 2512 by the Committee on K-12 Education Budget, an act concerning education, making and concerning appropriations for fiscal years ending June 30th, 2022, 2023, and June 30th, 2024 for the State Department of Education through requiring the State Department of Education to provide an annual written report on academic achievement outcomes.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2512. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had the opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Representative French votes aye. Other changes? Members will be in their seats. Representative Seibert votes aye. Representative Newland votes aye. Representative Barker votes no. Representative Clark votes aye. Representative Baker votes no. Representative Clark votes aye. Seeing 10 hands, a call is in order. We will wait. Seeing 10 hands, a call is in order. Doorman will close the doors. Members will be in their seats. The clerk will call the roll.
Representative Coleman, Representative O'Hobbitham, Representative Potter Partial, and Representative Eric Smith.
Representative O'Hobbitham votes no. Call is raised. Any further changes? With 76 voted in favor and 46 against the passage of House Bill 2512, the same have received a constitutional majority. The bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Final action, the clerk will read.
House Bill number 2609 by Representatives Esau, Blex, and others. An act concerning driver's licenses relating to restricted driver's licenses, allowing restricted driver's license holders to drive to and from worship services for any religious organization at age 15.
This constitutes final action on 2609. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had the opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? With 95 voted in favor and 27 against the passage of House Bill 2609, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Final action, the clerk will read.
Substitute for House Bill number 2615 by the Committee on K-12 Education Budget. An act concerning education permitting students to transfer to and attend school in any school district in the state based on capacity limitations of school district.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2615. The clerk will open the roll. You may record your vote. Has every member had the opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Representative Humphreys.
Mr. Speaker, I vote yes on House Bill 2615. I represent an outstanding school district. This bill will not alter that fact, but instead will give that school board local control over the details of how this bill is implemented. It might make a dent in our dismal proficiency numbers across the state, and it will be life-changing for the few students who are able to access the effects of this bill. Thank you.
Representative Hoy for an explanation of vote.
Mr. Speaker, I vote no on substitute for House Bill 2615. Unified school districts are the foundation of our state educational system. They are responsible for educating all students within their boundaries. This bill requires school districts to provide an education not only to their own students, but for other district students as well. School districts should be able to determine their own processes for accepting non-residential transfer students.
Any further explanations? Any member desire to change his or her vote? Seeing none, with 63 voted in favor and 59 against the passage of House Bill 2615, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Final action, the clerk will read.
House Bill number 2631 by the Committee on Appropriations, an act concerning education relating to college and career readiness, enacting the Career Technical Education Credential and Transition Incentive for Employment Success Act, providing state aid to school districts for students obtaining a credential, accepting national assessment providers from the State Online Personal Protection Act.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2631. The clerk will open the roll. You may record your vote. Has every member had the opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? With 122 voted in favor and 0 against the passage of House Bill 2631, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Final action, the clerk will read.
House Bill number 2717 by the Committee on Federal State Affairs, an act concerning municipalities relating to law enforcement agencies in cooperation with federal officials regarding citizenship, immigration status, and enforcement of federal immigration laws, requiring any municipal identification card to state it is not valid for state identification, including voter identification.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2717. The clerk will open the roll, and you may record your vote. Has every member had the opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Representative Vickers.
Mr. Speaker, I vote no on House Bill 2717. Instead of common sense solutions for our community, this bill takes a step backwards in the wrong direction. I vote no on House Bill 2717. Thank you.
Any further explanation of votes? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Representative Carlson votes aye. Further changes? With 84 voted in favor and 38 against the passage of House Bill 2717, the same have received a constitutional majority. The bill is hereby declared passed. Clerk will record the vote. Final action, the clerk will read.
Substitute for House Bill number 2737 by the Committee on Redistricting, an act concerning reapportionment relating to state representative districts, providing for the reapportionment thereof.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2737. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had the opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? With 112 voted in favor, 9 against, this 1 present, calls in order. Seeing 10 hands, the call's in order. Doorman will close the doors. Members will be in their seats. The clerk will call the roll.
Representative Coleman. Representative Potter Partial. Representative Eric Smith. Representative Toplicker.
Representative Toplicker votes aye. Further changes? The call is raised. Representative Miller votes no. Further changes? With 112 voted in favor and 10 against the passage of House Bill 2737, the same have received a constitutional majority. The bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Final action, the clerk will read.
Senate Bill number 161 by the Committee on Commerce, an act concerning personal package delivery devices, definitions, operating requirements and restrictions, exemption from motor vehicle requirements, limitation of local regulation, requiring entities to submit annual fees and certification forms to the Division of Vehicles.
This constitutes final action on Senate Bill 161. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had the opportunity to record the vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? With 77 voted in, Representative Hubert votes no. Representative Miller votes no. Any further changes? 75 in favor, 47 against the passage of Senate Bill 161. The same having received the constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Final action, the clerk will read.
Senate Bill number 199 by the Committee on Public Health and Welfare, an act concerning insurance relating to health insurance, providing for short-term, limited duration health plans.
This constitutes final action on Senate Bill 199. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had the opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member, Representative Probst, for explanation of vote?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't know if this is a good idea, and I don't know that it does what we think it will do, but I'm willing to vote for anything that increases access to health care. Consider giving it a try sometime.
Any further explanation of vote? Does any member desire to change their vote? Representative Burrows votes aye. The changes. Representative Weigel votes aye. (73) voted in favor and 49 against the passage of Senate Bill 199. The same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Final action, the clerk will read.
I'll substitute for substitute Senate Bill 267 by the Committee on Appropriations, an act making concerning appropriations for the fiscal years ending June 30, 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025 for state agencies, authorizing certain transfers, capital improvement projects, and fees, imposing certain restrictions and limitations, and directing or authorizing certain receipts, disbursements, procedures, and acts incidental to the foregoing.
This constitutes final action on Senate Bill 267. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had the opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Representative French on explanation of vote.
Mr. Speaker, I vote no on House Substitute for Substitute Senate Bill 267. We have a crisis in our corrections facilities, and the failure of this budget to fully fund the KDOC request for salary increases for our corrections officers is irresponsible use of government spending. A crisis based on lack of staffing is only propagated by failure to reward our corrections officers who are putting in more hours with higher risks. We are hemorrhaging senior officers every day, and the cut of the requested funding will result in an even deeper crisis within our correction facilities. The first responsibility of the state, public safety, is not being addressed. Representative French.
Any further explanation of vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? With 73 voted in favor and 49 against the passage of Senate Bill 267, the same then receive a constitutional majority. The bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Final action, the clerk will read.
Senate Bill number 367 by the Committee on Judiciary, an act concerning crimes, punishment, and criminal procedure relating to property seized by law enforcement, requiring officers to file copies of receipts with the court when property is seized under a search warrant, providing requirements and procedures for destruction of disposition of dangerous drugs and return or disposition of weapons.
This constitutes final action on Senate Bill 367. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had the opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? With 122 voted in favor and 0 against the passage of Senate Bill 367, the same then receive a constitutional majority. The bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Final action, the clerk will read.
Senate Bill number 493 by the Committee on Federal and State Affairs, an act concerning cities and counties, prohibiting the regulation of plastic and other containers designed for the consumption, transportation, or protection of merchandise, food, or beverages.
This constitutes final action on Senate Bill 493. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had the opportunity to record their vote? Clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? With 74 voted in favor and 48 against the passage of Senate Bill 493, the same had received a constitutional majority. The bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Speaker recognizes Representative Tarwater for a motion to concur on House Bill 2231.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 2231 was the bill about the pyramid schemes that passed 78 votes here and 36 votes in the Senate, 36 to nothing in the Senate. They made us one change because we referenced a supplemental of 2021 and the bill passed this year, not last year. So they made that one change to 2022. So, Mr. Speaker, I move that the House concur in Senate amendments to HB 2231.
To speak to the motion, Representative Clayton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Body, I agree with the carrier of this concur. We don't want this to go to the Senate. I think it's just best that we go ahead and get this taken care of. We don't want to deal with anything they have to do. Thank you.
Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Could somebody tell me what this bill's about so I remember what it is?
That was the question for the, go ahead, Representative Clayton for the second time.
Thank you. This motion was discussed yesterday in our agenda meeting, but what this bill does is that it goes ahead and it clarifies and it tightens some regulations on pyramid schemes. Now, I am not necessarily in love with MLMs. I do find them to be predatory towards people in the working class, in particular women, but I do think that this is a good bill. We had a lot of support for it last year, and I urge you to support this concur again. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, Representative, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I close.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2231. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had the opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Representative Thomas votes aye. Further changes? With 118 voted in favor and 3 against the passage of House Bill 2231, the same time received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. The Speaker recognizes the Majority Leader for a motion to resolve into the Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the House resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the purpose of considering those items under the heading of General Orders.
You've heard the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion carries. Speaker appoints Representative Wassinger to chair the Committee of the Whole.
Good morning, body. The first item of business is Senate Bill 506. For the purpose of carrying Senate Bill 506, the chair recognizes Representative Proctor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There were committee amendments. I move the adoption of the committee report.
You have heard the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The motion passes and the committee report is adopted. Please continue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise before the body to present Senate Bill 506. This act would authorize a Kansas Down Syndrome Awareness Distinctive License Plate for issuance on or after January 1st, 2023 for the use on passenger vehicle or truck registered for a gross weight of 20,000 pounds or less. Bill would authorize the North Central Kansas Down Syndrome Society to authorize the use of its logo to be affixed on these license plates. Plate would be designed by the society with the approval of the Director of Vehicles. Under continuing law, Kansas Down Syndrome Awareness license plates would not be issued unless there's a guarantee of an initial issuance of at least 250 license plates. And the North Central Kansas Down Syndrome Society be required to submit a non-refundable amount not to exceed $5,000 to defray the costs of the Division of Vehicles for developing the distinctive license plates, standard license plate language. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll stand for questions.
Does any member wish to speak to the bill? The chair recognizes Representative Helgerson.
There were no questions. There was an agreement in committee to passing of this bill.
Is there any further discussion?
If there's no further discussion, Representative Proctor, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that when the body rises and reports, it reports Senate Bill 506 favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion by Representative Proctor to report Senate Bill 506 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay? No. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. Our next item of business is Senate Bill 434. For the purpose of carrying Senate Bill 434, the chair recognizes Representative Burris.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Body, SB 434 pertains to automated license plate recognition and capture data subject to the Kansas Open Records Act. Specifically, the bill would amend core statutes that govern procedures for obtaining access to public records to require requests for records that contain captured license plate data or that pertain to the location of an automated license plate recognition system submitted to a state or local law enforcement agency or a governmental agency be directed to the state or local law enforcement agency or government agency that owns, leases, or contracts for the automated license plate recognition system. The bill would add these records to the statute governing records a public agency is not required to disclose and would define the terms automated license plate recognition system and captured license plate data for the purposes of CORA. As far as the fiscal note goes, Highway Patrol, Department of Revenue, Office of Judicial Administration, and League of Kansas Municipalities have each indicated that this bill would not have a fiscal effect. And with that, Madam Chair, I stand for questions.
Does any member wish to speak to the bill? For the purposes of discussion, I recognize Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with the carrier of this bill that we need to close these license plate scanner records to CORA requests. We really should be doing a lot more, though. This data at this point in time can be maintained by a law enforcement agency forever, meaning that they can always know wherever you have been at any time prior and for as long as these scanners have been around. The contractors who actually gather the data, at present, I don't believe that there are any restrictions in the law upon them selling that data to commercial companies so that your whereabouts, whether you were shopping at Dillon's or whether you were shopping at Hy-Vee, for example, would be for sale. Now, I understand that some departments enter into contracts that may not allow that use, but they can enter into other contracts that would allow anybody to buy that data from the vendor. That's not a good idea. It also allows for, the current scheme allows for fishing expeditions by lawyers, both plaintiffs' lawyers, defense lawyers, and lawyers involved in domestic relations cases, to try to find out where people have been at what particular time. So we're not going to fix those things with this bill, but as you walk away with what I hope will be an affirmative vote, I hope you will keep in mind that we need to give this entire situation more consideration for those of us who might be privileged to come back next year. With that, I urge your support of SB 434. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Does any member wish to speak to the bill? If not, Representative Burris, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that when the committee rises and reports, it report SB 434 favorably for passage.
You have heard the motion by Representative Burris to report Senate Bill 434 favorably. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. The next item of business is House Bill 2340. For the purpose of carrying 2340, the chair recognizes Representative Epley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There were no committee reports, so may I proceed?
Please continue.
Thank you. So House Bill 2340 is a bill that was actually in the first year of our biennium last year, and it stayed below the line until today, so it got above the line today to present to you for consideration. House Bill 2340 is a bill, a theme that I've worked on for several years here in the House, and finally seeing it come to fruition is an important day for me. House Bill 2340 amends the Kansas Cigarette and Tobacco Products Act and the Clean Indoor Act, previously passed, to increase the minimum age from 18 to 21 years of age to purchase or possess cigarettes, electronic cigarettes or e-cigs, any consumable tobacco products, and any other tobacco products. The bill adds the terms electronic cigarette and consumable material throughout the Cigarette and Tobacco Products Act. The bill amends the education statute, which currently prohibits the use of tobacco products in school buildings. The statute is amended to specify all 4 types of products regulated under the Act so that each is specifically prohibited in public school buildings. The bill raises the minimum age to purchase or possess any type of tobacco from 18 to 21. This does mirror recent federal law that was passed in December of 19, which raised the law to utilize any tobacco products to 21 anyway. The Kansas Department of Revenue did send out a memo to me that I want to just share with you. Current state law, minimum age currently is for 18, KSA 79-3321. KDOR can only regulate state law because our authority only extends to state law. KDOR gets funding from KDADS and also gets money from KDOR through SINAR money, which amounts roughly to about $850,000 total, which they will lose over time as this money will be prohibited from coming to these agencies for enforcement. In this law, it does regulate that there will be 2 controlled buys every year, and these buys will all then be authorized to be up to age 21, not age 18. Currently, KDOR there's confusion in the law because our law does not conform. As far as how this relates to other states, in calendar today I said there were 34 states, or actually 30 states that have T21 conformity laws, and that's all this is to make Kansas conform with federal regulations for T21 going forward. I'm well advised of the invasion that we talk about to personal freedoms for those that are 18 to 21 that actually can bear arms, those that can vote. But I will tell you, the brain of a young person from age 18 to 25 is not fully developed, and we make really bad decisions. Unfortunately, these decisions they germinate into then tobacco addiction, which leads to incredible health events later, which physicians and healthcare providers throughout the state gets to inherit. And I've inherited these for many, many years. And this is when it germinates. This is when it starts. And so if we raise that minimum age to 21 and have it consistent with federal law, that will really make a tremendous difference for us going forward in how many youngsters get addicted. Studies have shown it will cut addiction by as much as 50% in adults going forward if we can take care of this in ages 18 to 21. So I feel strongly about this, and I feel like it's our opportunity to finally conform with federal law that was already passed under the Trump administration in December of 19. And with that, I will also then pose a technical amendment, Madam Chair, if I can present this, that simply raises the year on this from 21 to 22 to be in proper statute. It's just a technical amendment I'd like to submit now.
The amendment appears short. Representative Epley, you may proceed. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Matt.
Forgive me. Is there any objection to waiving the reading of the bill? Okay. Oh, that's right. Sorry. The clerk will read the bill. Amendment.
Page 1, line 9, by striking 2020 and inserting 2021. And line 10 by striking 2020, inserting 2021. And line 14 by striking 2020, inserting 2021. On page 2 in line 27, by striking 2020, inserting 2021 on page 3 in line 38, by striking 2020 and inserting 2021. On page 1 in the title in line 5, by striking 2020, inserting 2021.
Does any member wish to speak to the amendment? If there's, you've heard the motion by Representative Epley to amend all those, no, I'm off, I'm sorry. I want to, have to go all these?
Okay. Shall I explain this, Madam Chair?
If there's no further discussion, Representative Epley, you may close. Representative Epley, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to say this is just a year update. It's just technical amendment, just to make the law current as we go forward, hopefully. So that's all, Madam Chair. Thank you on the amendment.
Does any member wish to speak to the amendment? I have to go to a vote. You've heard the motion by Representative. Oh, please, Representative. Seeing none, Representative Epley, you may close.
I close.
You've now heard the motion by Representative Epley to amend. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. They do have it. Motion passes. We're back on the bill. Does any member wish to desire to speak to the bill? The chair recognizes Representative Lewis Ruiz.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You're doing a great job. I do appreciate you seeing you in that chair. This bill's been a long time coming. I think the representative did a good job of explaining the bill. I urge your support. Thank you.
The chair recognizes Representative Collins to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am a retail seller of tobacco products in my business, and so I was kind of up in the air about this. I'm thinking, well, you know, should it be 18? Should it be 21? But the federal guidelines now are 21, and I have decided that I am in support of this bill for the purpose of complying with the federal guidelines. And with that, I do stand in support of this bill. Thank you.
To speak on the bill further, the chair recognizes Representative Riley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we talked about it, or it was explained to us that one of the reasons that we're trying to change this from 18 to 21 is because that is the age supposedly when a lot of people start smoking. Well, I don't think that's true of being a teacher. I think that age probably starts back in 12, 13 years old, they start getting this habit. So it's a long time between then and 18, and they figure out how to get the products that they need between 12 and 18. And so when I started looking at the bill, and there's a lot of good research in here that actually, you know, it was unbelievable to me that of kids that are I don't know what I want to say, kids or young adults between 18 and 21, 14% of them are smoking. That is a high number. The other thing is that we need to kind of work over is this whole thing about personal freedom and personal responsibility. I completely disagree with this whole thing of smoking and vaping. And so I agree with the underlying bill. I agree with that we need to do something for people to start being willing to change their habits. But I don't think we're going to do that by changing our age here just to comply with the federal government. I mean, we have had lots of cases where we did not comply with the federal government. So by losing, according to the work on this, we're going to lose $7.4 million. That's how much we make by taxes and sales tax and different licenses on from 18 to 21 of people that are smoking. That's an incredible thing. Not only is our government making a whole lot of money on it, the federal government is making money on cigarettes. So I don't think that we solve that problem by changing our smoking age from 18 to 21. And just like anything else, I can tell you that during my era, there was a whole lot of times when I came to Kansas because it was an 18 state for drinking in comparison to Nebraska. So the same thing could be true if you want to look at the financial part of this, that if maybe I'm in Oklahoma and Missouri and I want to come to Kansas because it's an 18 state instead of a 21 state. So there's some reasons, real good reasons, why we should not change this. It's independent. Now, talking to the chair ahead of time, I did look at some of the reasons for having a good, healthy way to solve all of this. And so I have an amendment.
Yes. The amendment appears long. Would the representative like to read? Tell us. Explain it, please.
Yes, I'd like to take a minute just to explain this. When I went back and looked at some of the numbers, and I'll let the clerk read this, but I'm going to take this down so that only 9%, less than 9% of the people purchase and smoke in the United States. So I'll let the clerk read this.
Is there objection to the reading of the amendment? Seeing none, Representative Riley, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this amendment changes this from, not from 18, not to 21. It has to do with the age of maturity, whatever that date is. So I'm changing this to 70. So you have to be 70 to buy vaping or cigarette products.
Go ahead. Does anyone want to speak to the amendment? The chair recognizes Representative Kessler. Oh.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This carrier answer some questions for me. I'm just kind of curious, as a retail tobacco retailer, I have tobacco shops. Would my clerks have to be 70 to sell it? Can you hear me?
Sorry.
All right. My question is would my clerks have to be 70 years old or older to sell the product?
Well, if we were going at the normal way that the law's been interpreted, just like for liquor, then that would be true. And so therefore your retailer would be able, you would have the business, but you would have to hire folks 70 above. What a great opportunity to bring retired people back.
Thank you very much. I just wanted some clarification on that. Obviously, guys, I definitely urge you to oppose this. Thank you.
For the purpose of the amendment, the chair recognizes Representative Barker to speak to the amendment.
Question? Yes, sir. How did you come up to 70? Why not 100?
That would have been a good opportunity, but I'm just a little over 70, so it would give me a choice.
Well, I'm not sure I'll give my age, but I think I would be eligible. This is not a good amendment. Come on, folks. I don't know if he's doing it in jest or not, but, you know, the federal statute 19 was changed by the Trump administration to make it 21. So on this amendment, and I'll just speak to the amendment, I can speak to the bill later, I would ask you to vote this amendment down, and let's get back on the bill. Thank you very much.
To further speak on the, that appears to be it. Representative Epley.
I think I appreciate the levity of the amendment, and thank you very much, but I would like to view this as an unfriendly amendment and say that we just want to keep this clean and keep it a simple conformity bill, period. So I urge you not to support this amendment. Thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak to the amendment? If not, Representative Riley, you can close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, if you think about this, this is a very healthy amendment. It also proves wrong all of the underlying things about this bill of changing it from 18 to 21. Because if there's something that has to do with age or when kids start smoking or being relative as far as people wanting to start smoking at 18 instead of 21, this is proving that all that underlying thing. Also, this makes a difference as far as personal responsibility. So, Madam Chair, I move my motion, amendment.
You've heard the motion by Representative Riley to amend. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? No. A division has been called for. The clerk will open the roll and you may vote. You have to look. Has every member had the ability to vote? The clerk will open the roll and you may, oh wait. Okay, oh. The clerk will close the roll and take the tally. To 89 not in favor of the amendment and 20 for the amendment fails. We're back on the bill. For purposes to discuss the bill, the chair recognizes Representative Helmer.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Chair, I just want to give you some information that I accumulated in the last few weeks. I'm the little lady that I had here as a guest in the audience. She's not involved in this, but her mother is. Her mother asked me to join a group of parents in my district. There is a problem because kids have actually been going in the restroom, and what they do is they take their vaping tools and they vape in the restroom and they pass out. And so no less than 4 emergency vehicles and personnel have been called to resuscitate the students that are in the restroom. And Carly tells me there has been more, but that's all the students have been informed of. Carly tells me it is a serious problem in our small community and that it's a serious problem in other communities. So I talked to my group of students that my grandson, are you guys not interested? If you're not, I won't talk about this. These 4 kids almost died. They were near death. They were resuscitated from close to death because of a silly thing like this, and I'm going to tell you what was in the vape pipe or whatever. I had to go to my grandson and ask him what it was, and he took me to some places. I pulled up Sedgwick County. Sedgwick County Mulvane is in Sedgwick County. Sedgwick County does have ordinances, and the ordinance says that you have to have a license, but in Sedgwick County, you can be a nutrition shop, you can be a vape shop, you can be a door-to-door shop, you can be a gourmet shop, you can be I mean, there's a whole list of shops here, and there is over 300 shops that have vaping tools and vaping equipment. We went into one place, they sell, they rent U-Hauls. It was really pretty nasty. But the bulk of it was vaping equipment. And I saw a bong that was about this tall off the floor. Now, who in the world needs a bong this tall off the floor? And they had every kind of vaping thing, and they explained to me that what you do with this vaping is there's certain percentages that you put in the vape pipe, and you can up how much you put in, and it's a nicotine derivative. Now, when did we make legal that they're selling nicotine in vape shops? Because I didn't know that the legislature made it legal to put nicotine in a vape shop. So these kids, and while I'm in there, there's kids walking in buying derivatives and putting them in their pockets because they don't want them in bags when they walk out. But there's kids and there's old crusty varmints walking in, buying them. I mean, there's everybody walking in. It's like it's a grocery shop.
Would you listen to the speaker, please? Thank you.
This place is like a grocery store, walking in there buying all kinds of stuff. And my grandson says, well, let's go to the next place, because we had a list of places, and it was the same place. All kinds of people walking in, buying stuff, and all you have to do is go, I want this, 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 and this, and they put it in a little sack, and people stick it in their pocket or they stick it in their purse and they walk out. And my son took me over and they explained to you. Anyway, so we go up and we're on 21st and Woodlawn, if you know where that is. It's up by a big gymnasium up there. You know where it is. Nice part of town. And this nice dressed kid, it's up by WSU, if anybody knows the area. It's pretty close to WSU. This nice dressed kid is standing on the corner, and it's cold as all get out right there, and he's all bundled up, and we stop because there's a stoplight, and so all of a sudden he's walking across, and he's going like this, and he goes, Grandma, look, look, Grandma, look, look, and he's walking across the light, and I said, what's he doing? He said, he's huffing. He's huffing, watch him. He's huffing, he's huffing. And so I walked all the way across the sidewalk, all across the deal. And he said, that's what they do. These guys are huffing all across. So he looked to be about 16 years old. And there was a shop right there. He'd just come out of a shop. May God bless America. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Is there any further discussion? If not, Representative Epley, you may close.
Tom, is there? Thank you, Madam Chair, for the nice example that was brought by the representative from South Sedgwick, and just basically for the health of our young adults going forward that really get started in incredibly bad habits that lead to incredibly expensive health habits later on in life that we inherit related to COPD, lung cancer, chronic lung disease. I really urge that, Madam Chair, that I move that when the committee rises and reports, report House Bill 2340 favorably for passage then as amended.
You have heard the motion by Representative Epley to report HB 2340 with amendment favorably. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed say nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The motion passes. The next item of business is House Bill 2492. For purposes of carrying House Bill 2492, the chair recognizes Representative Humphreys.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, there were committee amendments, and I move the adoption of the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, no. The motion passes, and the committee report is adopted. Please continue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. House Bill 2492 comes from the Appropriations Committee by the Joint Committee on Special Claims Against the State. That joint committee considers claims against state agencies that cannot lawfully pay except through an act of appropriations. So we are here this year, we do this every year, paying these joint claims against the state. In our 4 all-day meetings last year, we heard 79 claims, plus motor vehicle fuel tax refunds. Notably, of those 79 claims, 69 of them were from the Department of Corrections, and 7 of those were paid for a total of just under $800. The other parts of this bill, there was a sales tax refund for $29,000 to One Neck IT Solutions, but the bulk of this bill is a payment of $1.9 million from the Secretary of State to settle a court order for legal fees that came from a previous case that was filed in 2015. I would be happy to stand for questions.
Does any member wish to speak to the bill? Or the chair recognizes Representative Helgerson.
With the carry of the bill, please explain more in Section 4. What was the lawsuits that caused the $1.9 million payment?
Yes, happy to explain more about that. It was a proof of citizenship lawsuits that were filed by the ACLU and Denton's. The Secretary of State, the previous Secretary of State, chose to defend the state himself. We lost those cases, and the actual legal fees that would have been paid in that civil case should have been over $4 million, but it was a negotiated there was a hearing, and the negotiations took that fee down to $1.9 million for those 2 entities that won the cases.
Could you explain what the lawsuit was, and specifically what were the cases in the legislation that was passed?
The legislation was passed in 2011, I believe, and it had to do with proof of citizenship for voting. And the lawsuits were filed in 2015 to protest that what we passed in 2011.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'll commend the Attorney General for being able to negotiate it down. We appreciate him taking care of the fiscal issues for the state. But this is a warning to us as we are starting to go into the election cycle. The 2011 legislature, which I was not here, passed legislation that every attorney in the state that I believe, with the exception of probably one, knew the legislation was contrary to what the statute would say and the Supreme Court would eventually rule. You know, they ruled completely against us, and we got nailed. And we sometimes don't think our political actions have financial ramifications. Here is a case where we did not control other elected officials. I urge you, regardless of what happens in the election next year, we are the people's court. If we know something is not constitutional, do not go out on the edge and risk the financial health of this state. That's all I'm saying. I don't have a law degree. Many in here are much smarter, well, with the exception of I'm just joking. Yeah. What's important is if we know something's wrong, then come down here and say, this statute's not right. So whoever's in the Secretary of State or the governor's office or the AG have the backbone to tell them, Democrat or Republican, it's not right, it's wrong, and you're not putting the state at financial risk. I support the bill.
Is there further discussion? The chair recognizes Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is not funny. This is serious business. This is nearly $2 million of taxpayer money being poured down the drain. Last night, we passed a bill that I believe infringes upon the right to the First Amendment right as it relates to religion, because it favors Christian religions principally over other types of religion. I predict the day will come in a few years when we spend several $millions of taxpayers' money because we thought it's a good idea to let 15-year-olds drive from Wichita to church in Liberal. We're going to be looking at another bill here in a few minutes that I believe is also in violation of the First Amendment. That bill, by the way, is about so-called aggregators of attorney advertising. Think real carefully when attorneys tell you that bills like this subject us to the possibility of paying substantial attorney's fees. This is money that can be used for education. It's money that can be used for tax cuts. It's money that can be used for financial incentives for economic development. But the absolute worst place to send the money is the American Civil Liberties Union. Why? Why do you want to do that? Let's talk about what happened in this case. The former Secretary of State, Chris Kobach, advocated for this law in the legislature. I wasn't here to vote against it. A number of Democrats voted in favor of it. But it was clear to many of us that it was unconstitutional. By the time the lawsuit was filed, it should have been abundantly clear to any competent attorney that the state was going to lose. So what happened? The then Secretary of State said, "This won't cost the state anything." Rather than having the Attorney General defend the case, "I'll defend the case," said Chris Kobach. And he said he would do it with the existing resources of his office, and it wouldn't cost the taxpayers a dime. The Attorney General foolishly went along with that request. The Attorney General could have maintained control of this litigation and could have prevented it from turning into the farce that the trial over in federal district court in front of Chief Judge Julie Robinson turned into. Because the Attorney General, strike that, the Secretary of State at the time was clearly an incompetent attorney. He was found in contempt of court. He was sanctioned, told to pay the attorney's fees of the ACLU and the fine lawyers from the Denton's firm, paid those sanctions on the state's credit card with the name of one of his deputies who was serving his country in the Middle East on it. That's the credit card he used to pay the sanction. Then he was sent to remedial education by the chief federal district judge of the District of Kansas because he was such an incompetent lawyer he didn't know the rules of evidence. But even after all of that, and after, as I recollect, a 30-some-odd page opinion written by Judge Robinson that made it very clear that the law we had passed was unconstitutional, what happened? An appeal was taken to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals so as to multiply the cost of defending the lawsuit, and eventually the bill that we got from the plaintiff's attorneys for prosecuting the appeal in the federal courts. Who was responsible for that? The Attorney General of the state of Kansas, who was in office at the time, and his name is Derek Schmidt. He could have stopped it, but he didn't. And then, when Chris Kobach thought he was going to be governor and was defeated and left the Secretary of State's office in shambles to our friend, Scott Schwab, our fellow member, the Attorney General could have stopped it right then and there. But he didn't. He took over the defense of the action and ran up more attorney's fees, not only for the state in the form of lawyers' time that could have been used prosecuting crime, but also to run up the bill that was being incurred with the ACLU. This is a sorry example of what happens when lawyers, who are also politicians, put fame and vainglory ahead of their duty not only to their constituents, but also to the law. So the day of accounting has come. $2.375 million. No compliment should be extended to our Attorney General for having negotiated this down from the $3.9 million that were requested by the ACLU. It's no compliment at all. Fact of the matter is, what we should have done was just let Judge Robinson go ahead and fairly and properly assess the attorney's fees. We don't know whether we're actually paying too much or too little. We could have had a judicial determination of what the proper amount was, but finally, after our present Attorney General threw in the towel, then he did his best to dispose of the litigation as quickly as possible. That's what should have been done the same day the lawsuit was filed. That's what should have been done the day the case was appealed to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. But instead, as I said before, politicians in pursuit of publicity and glory wasted over $2 million of taxpayers' money. I will be voting yes on this because we don't have a choice. But just because we made this mistake once does not mean that we need to keep making it again. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Is there further discussion? The chair recognizes Representative Miller.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to augment briefly some of the remarks that were just made. I was lucky enough to sit on the Joint Committee on Claims this fall when this claim came before the Joint Committee. And when we had this discussion, it did turn into a love fest for our current Attorney General about what a remarkable, absolutely remarkable job he had done negotiating this down to a mere couple $1 million. And the subset of that discussion was pointing the finger at our previous Secretary of State. Oh, this was him, this was him, this was him. Well, when our current Secretary of State was elected Secretary of State, I made an appointment with him to specifically discuss a middle ground on this subject where county election officials would have a process that they could, if they chose to, verify a voter's citizenship without the voter having to go through all the effort and the expense of doing it. It would open up, when you registered to vote, it would open up, you would give permission to the election official to check those people who were born in Kansas as to whether they truly were citizens. So I recognize that there needs to be a process, and I said, let's come up with a process where the onus is not on the voter, but if an election official has doubt, they can explore it. And he said, and I have no problem quoting him or at least paraphrasing him. I made this same statement in public once before, and he didn't correct me. But he said, no, the Attorney General thinks he can win this case. The Attorney General at that point had inherited the case and had made the decision to go forward on appeal. And so they weren't interested in a bill to try to come up with a correct way to go about verifying citizenship because they thought they could, the Attorney General thought he could win the case. So in that regard, when the Joint Committee met this summer and the Attorney General appeared, I asked him, he was making the claim that most of these fees were accrued before he assumed the case, so I asked him to produce a breakdown of the attorney's fees before and after he assumed the case. He said he would. He did not. Those facts should be a matter of record. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Is there further discussion? If there's no further discussion, Representative Humphreys, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm bringing this back to an appropriations bill, which is what it is. We're required by this court order to pay that. And then the other thing I want to mention is I want to commend this body because of the bulk of our 4 days was hearing 69 claims from inmates in the Department of Corrections. They got a chance to speak personally to 9 legislators, and I think that is commendable to our body and to our state, and I want to mention that. And with that, Madam Chair, I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports House Bill 2492 favorably for passage.
All those in favor, you've heard the motion by Representative Humphreys to report HB 2492 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. I recognize the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In accordance with House Rule 1903, I move Senate Bill 382, appearing under that order of business, general orders, be passed over and retain a place on the calendar.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. All right, next order of business is Senate Bill 12. For the purposes of carrying Senate Bill 12, the chair recognizes Representative Concurrent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There were committee amendments. I move the committee report.
Heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. You may continue.
So Senate Bill 12 comes from the Committee on Children and Seniors, and this is a bill that requires DCF to collaborate with stakeholders and jointly develop a plan to implement performance-based contracts to provide evidence-based prevention and early intervention for families at risk. So currently, DCF, the current practice model is strengthening family. And this belief system includes not just DCF, but also their contractors who seek to assure the safety and well-being of not only the child, but the entire family. So this is just putting that into statute. It includes the implementation plan that is asked for in this bill will include information on the services delivered, the outcomes measured, and the referral processes for families, as well as a description of how the contracts will share responsibility for child protection between contractor and DCF. And with that, I'll stand for questions.
Does any member desire to speak to the bill? Chair recognizes Representative Owsley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Madam Chair, for the explanation of the Senate bill. I urge your support for Senate Bill 12.
Does anyone else desire to speak? Seeing none, Representative Concanon, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports Senate Bill 12 favorable for passage.
For the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. All right. Next order of business is House Bill 2502. For the purposes of carrying House Bill 2502, the chair recognizes my vice chair, Representative Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Body, this is House Bill 2502. Came to us out of Federal and State Affairs. This is a bill concerning retail liquor stores being able to sell and deliver alcohol and cereal malt beverages to a caterer, public venue, club, or drinking establishment located in any county.
Excuse me, Representative, there was a committee report.
What?
There was a committee report.
Oh, there were amendments. I move adoption of the committee report, sir.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. You may continue.
Good morning, body.
You don't have to repeat.
Okay, good. So, House Bill 2502, which you've already heard a little bit about because I screwed up, is about liquor delivery to caterers, public venues, club or drinking establishments. So essentially, there was a liquor modernization committee in 2021, last year, that came together and found in statute they wanted to allow alcohol delivery from any county, basically. And so there were some concerns about cleaning of taps, about expired products, and about this whole process. So there was amended language that came together and basically said, we're going to add the original language of the statute about premises located in a county where the retailer's premises are located, and add an adjacent county within 2 miles measured along the adjacent county boundary. So basically, instead of opening up to where any any store can sell or deliver anywhere in the state. We narrowed it to just a small area around the area. So it was compromising language. The process was done correctly and agreed upon. And I believe this is a good bill, and I would certainly encourage your support. And with that, I will happily stand for questions.
Does anyone desire to speak? The chair recognizes Representative Ruiz.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand your concerns about the bill. I kind of messed this up in the morning in caucus, and he threw me out, so I appreciate the corrections here. This bill was amended. When we first heard this bill, there was some pushback on the beer wholesalers and representatives of the American Family Action in Kansas, Missouri, the Kansas Association of Beverage Retailers. But since an amendment came together to bring this bill all to what it is today, it's all been supported, and so I do support the bill, and I think our caucus will too. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Representative.
Does anyone else desire to speak? The chair recognizes Representative Kessler.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The carrier did a good job explaining this bill. We're running into some situations basically with some drinking establishments that are having a difficult time finding a liquor wholesaler to buy their product from because they have to buy from a retail liquor wholesaler. So that what this does is expands that area out that gives a lot of these drinking establishments, especially out in western Kansas, gives them a little bit of extra options instead of having maybe only 1 or 2 stores that they can actually buy their product from. Now can open it up to, in some cases, up to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 stores and kind of foster some competition there as well. So it's a very good bill, and I do support this.
Does anybody else desire to speak? Seeing none, Representative Thomas, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move when the committee rises and reports, it passes House Bill 2502 favorably.
Heard the motion by Representative Thomas to report out House Bill 2502 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. All right, next order of business is House Bill 2716. For the purposes of carrying House Bill 2716, the chair recognizes Representative Estes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are no committee amendments. 2716 sounds probably a little familiar to you because last year we opened up the wartime survivor benefit and to include those with an 80% disability. The Board of Regents came back to us and asked us to define some of the words better to make it easier for them to implement the bill. So a large portion of the bill further defines some of the terms that we used. The bill also adjusts and adds an extra $150,000 by moving the limit that the Board of Regents can use from $350,000 to $500,000. So the fiscal note for this year is $150,000 above what's already been taken into account, and then $500,000 moving forward, and I'll be happy to take questions.
Does anyone desire to speak to the bill? The chair recognizes Representative Whitmore.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I agree with everything the previous representative said. Last year was a very good bill. This just clarifies it and helps the Board of Regents to more smoothly implement it. Thank you very much.
Further discussion? Seeing none, Representative Estes, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm delighted to move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports HB 2716 favorably, and there are a bunch of firemen we've talked to this year looking forward to us doing this as well.
Further motion by Representative Estes to report out House Bill 2716 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. All right, committee, we're moving on. For the purposes of carrying House Bill 2495, the chair recognizes Representative Schreiber.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There were committee amendments, and I move the adoption of the committee report.
For the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. You may continue.
House Bill 2495 comes to us from House Judiciary. It prohibits a public agency from requiring the disclosure of personal information about a person's affiliation with an entity that is exempt from federal income taxation under Section 501C of the Federal Internal Revenue Code. However, there are several exceptions that are listed in the bill. In essence, the bill ensures that when constituents in our communities donate to local charities or nonprofits, they can do so anonymously without fear or concern about having that personal information released. There were several proponents, including the NAACP, Kansas Family Voice, Kansas Policy Institute, Philanthropy Roundtable, Kansas Black Leadership Conference, and one neutral, which was Equality Kansas. There were no opponents. The proponents of the bill worked, and the neutral conferee worked with the Secretary of State and Attorney General's office to alleviate concerns. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Does anyone desire to speak to the bill? Chair recognizes Representative Patton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. After our committee heard and worked this bill, an issue was brought forward to us that there may be some concerns that the KBI and that the legislature, when we're doing background checks, for example, for Senate confirmation and those types of things, that this information may be relevant to those discussions. And so I have an amendment that will add to the list of exceptions in this bill that allows the KBI and the legislature, if necessary, to get this information for the purposes of background checks. So let me turn this amendment in. I guess I already turned it in. Hand it over. Okay.
You may proceed.
Basically, that's what it does. It adds to the list of exceptions background checks by the KBI and the Kansas legislature, and I'd be happy to stand for questions.
All right. Does anyone desire to speak to the amendment? Chair recognizes Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have not seen the amendment. My chairman was kind enough to tell me about the amendment this morning. I have no reason to think it does anything other than what the chairman says it does. It was not discussed in our committee. I wish it had been raised and discussed in committee, but it seems to be a good idea, and I'm still going to go ahead and vote aye on this amendment because I trust my chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Does anyone else desire to speak to the amendment? Seeing none, Representative Patton, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I close and move my amendment.
For the motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. We're back on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I need to make clarification. I think I mentioned that it just affected 501c organizations. Actually, the bill was amended in committee and says any nonprofit organization. And I'll stand for questions.
Chair recognizes Representative Carmichael. Did you desire to speak to the bill? You are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to be voting no on this bill. I understand that a number of worthy organizations brought this bill to the legislature and support this bill, and I won't fault anyone who votes in favor of this bill. But I want you to understand why I will not be supporting the bill. First, the broadening of the organizations who are eligible for this protection from what was originally thought and originally offered to be 501c organizations and was thought by many to mean 501c3 charitable organizations is much broader. In particular, it includes something known as a 501c4 corporation. When you get a postcard in the next election from some group that you've never heard of, I'd say there's about a 95% chance it's going to be courtesy of a 501c4 corporation. They are nonprofit corporations. They are called membership organizations and educational membership organizations. The way this works is they form a 501c4, and then they come to somebody like me, who, for example, supports abortion rights, and they say, we have a new educational organization that's going to educate people about abortion and abortion rights. And they say to me, they say, Mr. Lawyer, we'd like for you to join our organization. And I say, well, why should I do that? They say, because it's a membership organization and your dues will be tax deductible as a business expense. So I kick in, if I had it, $50,000 as my dues to this organization. They use the money to send out postcards against some of you in the next election to educate the voters about how you voted the wrong way on an abortion bill. And I get to write it off. This is the way dark money PACs are funded. This bill helps close the window of transparency to make sure that, notwithstanding the already existing Internal Revenue Service regulations, we now have a state law to protect dark money PACs. And then we went beyond that. We went so far as to extend it now to any nonprofit organization. Okay, brother? Extend it to any nonprofit organization. Now, if you're a member of the NAACP, one of the proponents of this bill, you may think that's a good idea. But if you don't like the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan, you ought to think about this because it protects their membership rolls as well. So as for me, I'll be voting no on HB 2495. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Does anyone else desire to speak to the bill? Seeing none, Representative Schreiber, you may close. Oh, okay. Representative Humphreys, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Body, I stand in strong support of this bill. During the hearing, we heard proponent testimony from organizations across the political spectrum, and this highlights why this bill is important. Whether you are a Republican or a Democrat, conservative or liberal, you deserve equal protection under the law. And when you give, knowing that when you give, your rights are protected and you can give anonymously. And that is why I support the bill. It's a bipartisan bill that we heard from people from, again, all across the spectrum. And I urge you to vote yes. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Representative Hobson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Body, this is my 6th year serving in this chambers. And one thing that I've learned is that there is no bill that is perfect. I would like to thank the chair and the committee for working with the NAACP and also the Kansas Black Leadership Council in regards to this bill. I know there have been many nonprofit organizations that have worked diligently, and I want to thank the support of our committee, and I urge everyone to support it. Thank you.
Does anyone else desire to speak to the bill? Seeing none, Representative Schreiber, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the discussion on both sides. I want to highlight again the bipartisan nature of the proponents that testified on the bill. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I close and make the motion to move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports House Bill 2495 favorably as amended for passage.
You've heard the motion by Representative Schreiber to report out House Bill 2495 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. No. Appears the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. Next order of business is Senate Bill 150. For the purpose of carrying Senate Bill 150, the chair recognizes Representative Mason.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nice tie, by the way.
I was going to ask you who shot the sofa. Just kidding. Just kidding.
I appreciate you letting me borrow it.
Mr. Chairman, there were committee amendments, and I move the adoption of the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. You may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll move through this fairly quickly so we can get on with the fun part. Senate Bill 150 is it's going to create new law relating to legal advertisements in the state of Kansas. Couple sections. It's just a 3-page bill. Section 1 outlines 8 requirements that legal advertisers must follow. I'll just quickly enumerate them. Number 1, the advertiser must disclose that this is a paid advertisement for legal services. Number two, they may not present as medical alert, health alert, consumer alert, public service announcement, etc. Number 3, they must not display the logo of a federal or state government agency that would imply affiliation or sponsorship with that government agency. They may not use the word recall if there has in fact been no recall. They must identify the sponsor of the ad. They must indicate who the attorney or law firm will be or how those referrals will be made. They must, if alleging harm from an FDA approved drug, they must include this language: do not stop taking a prescribed medication without first consulting with your doctor. Discontinuing a prescribed medication without your doctor's advice can result in injury. And finally, they must, if alleging harm from an FDA-approved drug or device, disclose if the drug or device still remains approved and unless it's been recalled or withdrawn. Now, Section 1 also requires words or statements to be clear and concise and conspicuous, and written disclosures clearly legible. Section 2 addresses protected health information, and both sections provide that violations would constitute an unlawful and deceptive trade practice under the Kansas Consumer Protection Act. So we had proponents and opponents, as you would imagine. The proponents generally stated that the bill would help address concerns about advertisements that solicit lawsuits regarding prescription drugs and medical devices. And the opponents stated that the Kansas rules of professional conduct already govern this type of attorney conduct, and that the Kansas Supreme Court ultimately is generally regulates the legal profession. So because of those objections, a balloon amendment was executed in committee, and we excluded attorneys and law firms from the bill. So that basically leaves the marketing firms and what we would call aggregators. With that, Mr. Chairman, I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Representative, for that thorough explanation. Does anyone desire to speak to the bill? Representative Clayton, you are recognized.
Why, thank you, Mr. Chair, for the recognition. The carrier of the bill did a good job explaining what it does. There are a couple of problems that I can foresee with this. It was mentioned in our caucus that this might be a violation of some First Amendment rights, and it might lead to the state potentially getting sued. So we sort of have a potential unforeseen fiscal note. One of the more nitpicky things that I noticed about this bill, too, is that it only excludes, so for instance, if something has been officially recalled, then and only then can that apply, right? But getting things recalled is particularly difficult. If you feel like pulling up your old Google machine and looking up the Paragard IUD, that has not been recalled, but it's caused a great deal of uterine injury, which does lead to infertility, which last I checked, given this body's voting record, we are really not inclined to support, right? And so one of the problems is that you'll have people who are uninsured who tend to remove these devices on their own, And part of the problem is that they don't have the insurance to actually go in and remove them. We've got just a lot of general issues going on through this. And also, we also want to think about the origin of this bill. This bill originated in the Senate Judiciary Committee, and for reasons I cannot ascertain, was not passed to the House Judiciary Committee, where I do think that it needs more thorough vetting by attorneys. We have a couple in the Commerce Committee, but not really enough to give it the proper vetting that I think that it needs. So I have some concerns about it. I do think that the amendment that went on did give cause for some of our organizations to move to support this, but I will likely be a no given my concerns about potential cost and a lack of vetting by attorneys who, I might add, in our amendment that we put on in committee, are no longer declared to be people. So I think we've got another one popping up here to talk about this, so let's hear what this gentleman has to say. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Does anyone else desire to speak to the bill? Seeing none, Representative Mason, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That went a little quicker than I anticipated. I'll just make the closing motion. I move that when the committee rises and reports, it would report Senate Bill 150 favorably for passage.
Heard the motion by Representative Mason to report Senate Bill 150 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Appears the ayes have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Our next item of business is substitute for Senate Bill 450. For the purpose of carrying Senate Bill 450, the chair recognizes Representative Garber.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senate substitute for Senate Bill 450 comes to us from the Committee on Financial Institutions and Insurance. It passed the Senate 38-2. It's a bill concerning state property and sale of surplus real property. What this does is it eliminates the 80% of the proceeds from a sale that was going to the Kansas Capers Fund and is now going to be given to the institution that sells it. This is only for property that has been an endowment or a bequest or a gift, sorry. It authorizes the State Board of Regents to adopt policies. They will decide the policies that they will use for this money, and the purpose of this money is to help complete deferred maintenance that is from past projects, and to scale down their footprint. The increase in revenue would be the elimination of the 80% that goes to Capers in current legislation. So now they will get 100% of that sale. There were no committee amendments. There were 3 proponents, 3 universities, and there were no opponents and no neutrals, and there's no fiscal impact. With that, Madam Chairman, I will stand for questions.
Thank you, Representative Garber. Is there anyone who wishes to speak to this bill? Chair recognizes Representative Neighbor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the individual who carried the bill, did an excellent job. A couple of important, I think, information that kind of helps is that 80% of each one of these sales has always gone to Capers. That amount of money has been over $1 million that has been given to Capers. Actually, it's 1.9 million that has gone to Capers during this period of time since 2012. It's about time that universities and colleges have the ability to do and take care of their buildings the deferred maintenance. And what this does is it gives 100% of each one of those properties sold to the university. And that's very important. It doesn't share it with anybody, so if someone bequeaths something to K-State, all of that money would go to K-State. If they gave a gift to KU, it goes to KU. So what it does is it helps our colleges and universities use this for deferred maintenance, which we all know is not the pretty side of endowments and gift giving. Oftentimes, people look at it as I want a building or I want something named after me. So I think this clears up a much long overdue issue, and I would ask for your support for Senate Bill 450. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Representative Neighbor. Is there anyone else desire to speak to this bill? Seeing none, Representative Garber, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that when the committee rises and report, it reports Senate Bill 450 favorably for passage.
You have heard the motion by Representative Garber to report substitute Senate Bill 450 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Oppose? The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. Thank you. The next item of business is House Bill 2504. For the purpose of carrying House Bill 2504, the chair recognizes Representative Burkamp.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There were committee amendments, so I move the adoption of the committee report.
Proceed. Oh, I'm sorry. You heard the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? No. The motion passes and the committee report is adopted. Please continue.
Thank you. This bill comes to us out of the Transportation Committee. When I first introduced this bill, there were a couple issues with it, so there was an opponent. However, working with them and others, we've come up with compromise language to where we stand today, and now everybody's either a neutral or proponent. This bill deals with who's eligible for a disabled veteran license plate. The issue today is that everyone who qualifies for a disabled veteran license plate gets one with an ISA symbol, so International Symbol of Access. And this has led to kind of a lack of parking availability at the VA hospital in Wichita for veterans who are limited mobility to get some of those spots. So all we're trying to do today is tweak who qualifies for a plate with the ISA symbol. We're not going to take any benefits away from somebody who, under the current statute, qualifies for a disabled veteran plate, but what we are going to do is add in a subsection that says to qualify for a disabled veteran plate with an ISA symbol, you have to meet the Department of Revenue TR 159 guidelines, which is what you have to currently do for a handicap placard for an individual. So we're just trying to narrow the scope and make it better for everybody involved. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Does any member desire to speak to the bill? Chair recognizes Representative Proctor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to thank the carrier of this bill for all his hard work. I did not support this when we started, but as a disabled veteran myself, and I know there's a lot of disabled veterans here in the room, I think that you did a very good job of getting this to the point where we're recognizing our disabled veterans, but also making those parking spots available for the folks that actually have mobility impairments. I also wanted to thank Mr. Michael Kelly of the Military Officers Association of America. I just tell all the members of that organization that they are very well represented here in the Capitol, and I appreciate his hard work with you to get this to where it is. I stand in support of House Bill 2504. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Chair recognizes Representative Helgerson.
I also am in support of the bill and appreciate the cooperation that was done. And in recognition of having a Democrat in the chair, I have an amendment on Medicaid expansion. Just kidding.
Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, Representative Bergkamp, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that when the committee arises and reports, it reports substitute for House Bill 2504 favorably for passage.
You have heard the motion by Representative Bergkamp to report House Bill 2504 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes appear to have it, and the ayes do have it. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I'm going to be a little bit different. I'm going to go old school here. And I have a trivia question for you. Can somebody tell me, and you can come up here and I'll tell you if you're right or wrong, but can somebody tell me who earned a track scholarship from KU and who won the Olympic gold medal in 1964 Olympic Games in Tokyo? Thank you. You can come up here and I'll tell you if you're right or wrong. Once again, this person earned a track scholarship from KU and they went on to win the Olympic gold medal in 1964 at the Olympic Games in Tokyo. Our first item of business is Senate Bill 405. For the purpose of carrying Senate Bill 405, the chair recognizes Representative Haswood. And real quick, Billy Mills was the answer. Thank you, Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There were committee amendments. I move the adoption of the committee report.
You have heard the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The motion passes and the committee report is adopted. You may proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. SB 405 would amend the authorization and direct exchange of lands from the Director of Kansas State Historical Society to the Shawnee Tribe. It's exactly 0.52 acres of parcel of the land in Johnson County, Shawnee, Kansas, back to the Shawnee Tribe. This will be done through a quick claim deed. The bill would provide the conveyance, which would not require appraisal bid or publication, and the conveyance would not subject to appraisal recommendations in the continuing of law. The Attorney General would be required to review and approve the deeds and conveyance. The Shawnee Tribe has agreed to pay all costs related to the conveyance and would grant the state an historical preservation easement that would reflect current federal preservation laws. And this would show on the list of the National Register of Historical Places. So this did pass out of the Senate unanimously, but we did, when we heard testimony, there was neutral testimony from the Attorney General's office that raised a concern of building a casino on this cemetery and very sacred lands. So to ease those concerns, there was an amendment brought by the Shawnee Tribe to put in statute that they will not build any casino on top of their ancestors. For historical reference, the Shawnee Tribe was located on the eastern side of our country in Woodlands Territory during the era of where Indigenous and Native American peoples were forcibly removed out westward. They did end up coming towards Kansas and settling here for quite some time. They provide a great historic significance to our state, where they fought alongside to keep Kansas as a free state. They fought in the conflict of the Civil War and was awarded the title Loyal Shawnee, and they wear this title very proudly. 2 years ago, the State Historical Society reached out to the tribe in interest to give ownership back to this land of their ancestors. Very important leaders from the Shawnee tribe are buried at the cemetery, such as Chief Joseph Parks, Moses Silverhead, and family members of the famous General Chief Blue Jacket. This property has historically been a town gathering previously before being a cemetery. It also was a place of worship, and now places a family of loved ones from the Shawnee tribe. And with that, I will stand for questions.
The chair recognizes Representative Arnbarger Blue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The carrier did a great job explaining the bill and the history behind it, and ask for your support. Thank you.
The chair recognizes Representative Neighbor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This piece of property is in my district. People have already started doing work on this. Some of the graveside stones have been worn over the years, or damage has been done, and they've taken some of those to refurbish them. This piece of land is maybe a half an acre, so I'll guarantee you it's at the end of a dead-end street. You could not put a casino on it if you wanted to. There's not enough room, and I guarantee there would be no parking. So, but this is sacred land. Chief Blue Jacket was, for your history, the first white Indian chief. His family came to our home many years ago when my children attended Blue Jacket, and we had a great history discussion, and he and his wife stayed at our home. They had a motorhome, and bless her heart, she cooked cookies, and my 4 kids wouldn't stay away from her. So they won the hearts, and after that, a mural was actually developed in Blue Jacket, which now sits in our Civic Center. So if you ever want to come and see it, it depicts that period of time. And it's a great honor to have this in my district, and contains an awful lot of Indian history that at some time, if you want more, I'd be glad to give it to you. So I strongly stand in support of Senate Bill 405.
The chair recognizes Representative Byers.
Chalk-Mashki, Madam Chair. Will the carrier of the bill please stand for a question?
Yes.
In this moment, is there historical significance with me asking you this question and with our chair sitting on the dais?
Thank you for the question. This is a very historical moment, as to our knowledge, this is the first time we have a Native American person in the big chair, and us all in this position here.
Thank you. Chokmashki body. I was honored to be able to give testimony on this bill, and highly encourage you to pass this. I think it's very important that on these sites that are traditional and historic and sacred, that we look at how we can repatriate those to the First Nations that originally occupied the land. Again, I encourage you to support this. Thank you.
Is there any further discussion? If there is no further discussion, Representative Haswood, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports SB 405 favorably for passage.
You have heard the motion by Representative Haswood to report Senate Bill 405 favorably. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. The next item of business is House Bill 2697. For the purpose of carrying House Bill 2697, the chair recognizes Representative Wheeler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There were committee reports. I move the adoption of the committee report.
You have heard the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, no. The motion passes and the committee report is adopted. You may proceed.
Larned State Hospital is responsible for the admission of inmates for forensic examination to determine competency to stand trial. Larned State Hospital is also responsible for admission of inmates who have been determined to be incompetent to stand trial to restore them back to competency to stand trial. As of December of 2021, the average stay for persons remaining in county jails waiting to be admitted to Larned State Hospital was 336 days. That's December of 2021. House Bill 2697 is a bill to ameliorate the difficulty in getting prisoners into facilities for psychiatric examination for competency. What this bill does is it allows the state hospital to contract with providers to perform these forensic examinations for these inmates. And this may be done in jails if the sheriff approves it and there are adequate facilities available within the jail to perform these examinations. It provides for mobile examinations. It provides for examinations to be done by video. It also provides that these reports Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just checking to see if that was a tomahawk. I am getting a point that that is apparently considered offensive. If it is, I certainly do apologize. What this does, when these inmates sit in the jail that long, that causes the county jails tremendous expenses. This would allow for these examinations to be completed more rapidly. There's also a provision within this bill, because it dives into the weeds, that it describes the manner and when psychotropic drugs can be administered to an inmate for purposes of performing the examination. It also prescribes the method and what procedures can be used or must be used to administer psychotropic examinations without the consent of the inmate. This bill is really necessary. There is a fiscal note to it of $2.8 million to implement this program, to provide for the contractors the mobility, the video. This has been in the governor's budget. It is in the Senate budget, I am advised, and it's in the House budget. And with that, I stand for questions.
The chair recognizes Representative Carmichael.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in support of HB 2697. First, I want to extend my appreciation to the outstanding lawyer from Finney County for his explanation of this legislation. I also want to tell you that this bill was not accomplished without the work of a committee. And it was an example of how the committee process does work. This bill would not be before you without the work of a committee. It was supported by the Kansas Department of KDADS. It was supported by the ACLU. It was supported by the Wyandotte County District Attorney. It was supported by the Douglas County Sheriff. It was supported by Wyandotte Behavioral Health Network, and it was supported by the Kansas Mental Health Coalition. But the original bill was it was supported by the Kansas Sheriff's Association. It was supported by the Associated Community Mental Health Centers. It was supported by the Attorney General, and it was supported by the League of Kansas League of Municipalities. It was opposed, however, by the Disability Rights Center of Kansas. But after work by everybody involved, the Disability Rights Center of Kansas became a proponent following the amendment of this legislation. So if you want to be proud of how the committee process works, here's an example for you, and I urge that you vote in favor of HB 2697. Thank you, Madam Chair, a North High grad.
Does anyone else wish to speak to the bill? If not, Representative Willer, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And the representative from Wichita, I appreciate you mentioning all the supporters of the bill. I failed to mention that. And with that, Madam Chair, I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports House Bill 2697 favorably for passage.
You have heard the motion by Representative Wheeler to report House Bill 2697 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes.
The chair recognizes the majority leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know there are some people watching on WebEx for this next bill. We're going to be passing over it because the chair found some problems in it that we need to get fixed before we run it. So therefore, in accordance with House Rule 1903, I move Senate Bill 399 appearing under the that order of business, general orders, be passed over and retain a place on the calendar.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion passes. Next item for business is House Bill 2596. For the purpose of carrying House Bill 2596, the chair recognizes Representative Francis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. There were committee amendments. I move the adoption of the committee report.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. You may continue.
Thank you. So, body, House Bill 2596 is a bill that authorizes the Board of Education of a school district to contract with transportation network companies to provide certain transportation services. So this is not a mandate. It's totally voluntary if a school district wants to do that. Again, it authorizes but does not require the school district to contract with a transportation network company to transport 8 or fewer people to and from school or school-related activities. It also authorizes a school district to establish requirements in the contract that are in addition to the requirements in the Transportation Network Company Services Act. We'll call that TNC from here on out. So they can be more restrictive than the regulations in that act, but they can't be less restrictive. It would authorize the Kansas State Department of Education to issue guidance to school districts on the topic. It specifies that the contract would govern the services provided, and the State Board of Education rules and regulations concerning transportation of students do not apply. I think we've all seen the big yellow school buses that sometimes are going around with 1 or 2 students in it. And this is an innovative way that we can help our school districts be more efficient by having vehicles that are more appropriately sized for the service that they're providing. There were some concerns in the bill that we addressed with an amendment to talk more about what the insurance requirements were and what the notifications to the parents involved needed to be. So with that, I have an amendment.
Do you mean for that amendment to end?
The amendment appears long.
Yeah.
Would you like to explain the amendment?
Sure. Did I not give you a...
Representative Francis, feel free to continue explaining the amendment.
Okay. You might
Excuse me. Yeah, I think they've got a good copy. So, what this amendment does, again, it deals primarily with strictly lining out what the insurance requirements are and also the notifications to the parents. So, there's a requirement in this amendment to notify parents prior to their children riding with a TNC. There's a requirement that allows parents to opt out of having their children ride in a TNC. There's a disclaimer that must be provided annually to the parents of a child which may be transported by a TNC, which says that the district uses ride-sharing services to transport children and that the relationship between the district and the TNC is governed by a contract, and all rules and regulations of the State Board of Education concerning the transportation of students shall not apply. There's a requirement that the TNC name the USD as an additional insured under its insurance policy, and a requirement that the USD shall maintain insurance for students using a TNC which covers the child as though the child were still in the care, custody, and control of the district, even when riding with the TNC.
Is there objection to waiving the reading of the amendment? There's no objection. Does any member wish to speak to the amendment? Representative Helgerson.
I'm sorry about the confusion, but the amendment that I was provided didn't have a back page, and so half of the amendment wasn't provided to me. In committee, the school administrators had some concerns. I'll tell you right up front, they haven't visited with me, and I thought the amendment that was discussed in committee and this one may take care of all their concerns, but I don't know. I believe that there's a good faith effort to try to rectify whatever concerns there were. I'm in favor of the bill because it provides the school districts the opportunity of providing an alternative delivery system for kids that may have some issues. It still puts the responsibility and the authority with the school district and an agreement with the parents. But I haven't had a chance to fully look at the amendment that was offered, but I think that we're all on the same page. So I'll stand with it for the amendment.
Does anyone else wish to speak to the amendment? Seeing none, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I close.
I apologize. I didn't. It's.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have one question for the carrier bill. I I understand that the vehicles have to have, be able to carry at least 4 to 6 or 7 passengers, is that?
They can't carry more than 8. I don't think there's a minimum on the bottom.
Okay. I'm concerned about children that are in wheelchairs or they have other devices that they have to use in order to get from one place to the other. How is that handled?
Well, it won't actually be handled in this bill because this is strictly voluntary, and there's going to be like special uses where this is going to apply. Like, for instance, one of the examples I was given, like, let's say maybe we had someone on the autism spectrum and being in a loaded school bus was problematic, or maybe we have 2 kids on the other side of an interstate. Rather than running the bus all the way out there, they could use this as an alternative. So it'll be on a
Okay. And the drivers have special training regarding children with special needs?
those will be covered in the contract that they have with the school district. So it's very school district dependent. You know, what works, for instance, in Tribune won't work in inner city Wichita.
Great, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
We need to have a vote on your motion to amend, and we managed to skip over that. All in favor of the motion to amend, please say aye. All opposed, no. You may continue. To speak to the bill, Representative Helgerson?
As I said, I agree with the intent of the bill, and I agreed with the amendment, and I urge you to support the bill.
Representative Ruiz, would you like to speak again? Representative Prell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Body, this is a good bill that was just made better with that amendment. I would encourage your support. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Do any other members wish to speak to the bill? Seeing none, you may close.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move that when the committee rises and reports, it reports House Bill, what did you say, 2596, favorably for passage as amended.
You've heard the motion by Representative Francis to report HB 2596 favorably. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. Motion passes. Next item of business is Senate Bill 563. For the purpose of carrying Senate Bill 563, the chair recognizes Representative Croft. Body, we're going to stand at ease for just a moment, please. Body, the chair recognizes the majority leader for a motion.
So, Body, we are waiting on an amendment for that last bill, and in an effort to be efficient and continue moving forward with all the things that we need to do to finish up today, we're going to rise and report. We will do some of seeds, various other things, then we will come back and pick up this last bill. But probably going to be 30, 45 minutes before the amendment gets here, so we might as well be efficient and do some other things. So with that, Madam Chair, I move we rise and report.
You've heard the motion to rise and report. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion passes.
Clerk will read the committee report.
Mr. Speaker, your committee of the whole recommends House Bills 2716, substitute for House Bill 2504, Senate Bills 506, 343, and 450 be passed. House Bills 2340, 2492, 2502, 2495, 2596, Senate Bills 12150 and 405 be passed as amended. Senate Bills 382 and 399 be passed over and retain a place on the calendar.
Speaker recognizes Representative Esau.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move the committee of the whole report.
You've heard the motion to adopt the committee report. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The committee report is adopted. Speaker recognizes Representative Hawkins for a motion.
EFA. You want to do the seeds? EFA.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to House Rule 2311, I move that an emergency be declared in Senate Bill 506, Senate Bill 434, House Bill 2340, House Bill 2492, Senate Bill 12, House Bill 2502, House Bill 2716, House Bill 2495, Senate Bill 150, substitute for Senate Bill 450, substitute for House Bill 2504, Senate Bill 405, House Bill 2697, and House Bill 2596 be advanced to that order of business final action on bills and concurrent resolutions.
You've heard the motion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion passes. Final action on bills and concurrent resolutions. The clerk will read.
Senate Bill number 506 by the Committee on Federal and State Affairs, an act concerning motor vehicles relating to distinctive license plates, providing for the Kansas Down Syndrome Awareness License Plate.
This constitutes final action on Senate Bill 506. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Seeing none, 115 having voted in Representative Jacobs votes aye.
Representative Adam Smith votes aye. Are there any further changes of vote? Seeing none, 117 having voted in favor and 5 against the passage of Senate Bill 506, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Final action, the clerk will read.
Senate Bill number 434 by the Committee on Judiciary, an act concerning public records relating to records that contain captured license plate data or that pertain to the location of an automated license plate recognition system, disclosure thereof under the Open Records Act.
This constitutes final action on Senate Bill 434. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? Clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Representative Helgerson votes aye. Seeing no further changes of vote, with 122 having voted in favor and 0 against the passage of Senate Bill 434, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. Clerk will record the vote. Final action, clerk will read.
House Bill number 2340 by the Committee on Federal and State Affairs, an act concerning cigarettes and tobacco products, increasing the minimum age to purchase or possess such products.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2340. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? Clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Representative O'Hobbesome votes aye. Representative Hubert votes no. Representative Bergquist votes no. Representative Helmer votes no. Representative Williams votes no. Representative Sutton votes no. Seeing no further changes of vote, 79 having voted in favor and 43 against the passage of House Bill 2340, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Final action, clerk will read.
House Bill number 2492 by the Committee on Joint Committee Special Claims Against the State, an act concerning certain claims against the state, making appropriations, authorizing certain transfers, imposing certain restrictions, limitations, directing or authorizing certain disbursements, procedures, and acts incidental to the foregoing.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2492. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? On an explanation, Representative Carmichael.
Mr. Speaker, I do not like lawyer advertising. I do not like drug company advertising. I don't like a lot of things I see courtesy of the advertising industry.
You haven't had enough Representative Carmichael for 1 week. Just wait, there's more. Representative Riley votes no. Any further changes of vote? Seeing none, 116 having voted in favor and 6 against the passage of House Bill 2492, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Final action, clerk will read.
Senate Bill 12 by Senator Faust-Gadot, an act concerning the Department for Children and Families relating to performance-based contracting.
This constitutes final action on Senate Bill 12. Clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? Clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Representative Thomas votes aye. Representative Epley votes aye. Representative Wheeler votes aye. Representative Howell votes aye. Are there any further changes of vote? Seeing none, 117 having voted in favor and 5 against the passage of Senate Bill 12, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Final action, the clerk will read.
House Bill number 2502 by the Committee on Federal and State Affairs, an act concerning alcoholic beverages relating to the sale and delivery by retail liquor stores of alcohol and cereal malt beverages to a caterer, public venue, club, or drinking establishment located in any county.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2502. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Seeing none, 112 having voted in favor and 10 against the passage of House Bill 2502, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Final action, clerk will read.
House Bill number 2716 by the Committee on Appropriations, an act concerning educational benefits for spouses and dependents of deceased, injured, or disabled public safety officers and employees, and certain deceased, injured, or disabled military personnel, prisoners of war, definitions, increasing the limitation on reimbursements to Kansas educational institutions.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2716. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Seeing none, 122 having voted in favor and 0 against the passage of House Bill 2716, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Final action, the clerk will read.
House Bill number 2495 by the Committee on Judiciary, an act concerning records relating to personal information about affiliation with certain nonprofit organizations, prohibiting a public agency from disclosing information related to such affiliation and providing exemptions.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2495. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? Clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Seeing none, 107 having voted in favor and 13 against the passage of House Bill 2495, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Final action, clerk will read.
Senate Bill number 150 by the Committee on Judiciary, an act concerning legal services relating to advertising, defining and prohibiting certain legal advertisement practices as unlawful and deceptive trade practices, restricting the use or disclosure of protected health information for legal solicitation, and prescribing civil and criminal penalties.
This constitutes final action on Senate Bill 150. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Seeing none, does any member desire to change his or her vote? Representative Carmichael on Now timely explanation of vote.
Mr. Speaker, I do not like lawyer advertising. I do not like drug company advertising. I don't like a lot of things I see courtesy of the advertising industry, but I respect the rights of others to advertise and say things which I believe are in poor taste and things with which I vehemently disagree. When we restrict the right of free speech, we do so at our constituents' financial peril. Today, we spent $2.375 million of taxpayer money because the legislature violated the Constitution. Someday, a future legislature will be paying a similar bill because of this legislation. I therefore vote no on Senate Bill 150. Representative Carmichael.
Are there any further explanations of vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Seeing none, 75 having voted in favor and 47 against the passage of Senate Bill 150, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Final action, the clerk will read.
Substitute for Senate Bill 450 by the Committee on Financial Institutions and Insurance, an act concerning state property relating to the sale of surplus real property, eliminating the crediting of 80% of the proceeds from such sale to the Kansas Public Employees Retirement Fund, authorizing state educational institutions to sell and convey real property given to a state educational institution as an endowment, bequest, or gift, authorizing the State Board of Regents to adopt policies relating to such sale and conveyance.
This constitutes final action on Senate Bill 450. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? 117 having voted in favor and 5 against the passage of Senate Bill 450, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Final action, the clerk will read.
Substitute for House Bill number 2504 by the Committee on Transportation, an act concerning motor vehicles relating to disabled veteran distinctive license plates, allowing the printing of the international symbol of access for disabled veteran distinctive license plates and certain parking privileges for disabled veterans who meet certain physical disability definitions.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2504. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? 122 having voted in favor and 0 against the passage of House Bill 2504, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Final action, the clerk will read.
Senate Bill number 405 by the Committee on Federal and State Affairs, an act concerning the disposition of certain state real property, authorizing State Historical Society to convey certain real property located in Johnson County to the Shawnee Tribe, imposing certain conditions, prescribing costs of conveyance.
This constitutes final action on Senate Bill 405. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? 122 having voted in favor and 0 against the passage of Senate Bill 405, same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Final action, the clerk will read.
House Bill number 2697 by the Committee on Judiciary, an act concerning crimes, punishment, or criminal procedure relating to competency to stand trial, mobile competency evaluations.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2697. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? 122 having voted in favor and 0 against the passage of House Bill 2697, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. clerk will record the vote. Final action, the clerk will read.
House Bill number 2596 by the Committee on Transportation, and Act concerning transportation relating to transportation network companies, authorizing the Board of Education of a school district to contract with transportation network companies to provide for certain transportation services.
This constitutes final action on House Bill 2596. The clerk will open the roll, and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? The clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Does any member desire to change his or her vote? Representative Heiberger votes aye. Representative Carmichael votes aye. Are there any further changes of vote? Seeing none, 122 having voted in favor and 0 against the passage of House Bill 2596, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Speaker recognizes the majority leader for a motion to accede.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Senate did not concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 215. I move the House accede to the request of the Senate and that a conference committee be appointed.
Heard the motion. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion passes. As conferees on the part of the House, the Speaker appoints Representatives Hubert, Thomas, and Stodgdal. Speaker recognizes the majority leader for a motion to accede.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Senate did not concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 313. I move the House accede to the request of the Senate and that a conference committee be appointed.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion passes. As conferees on the part of the House, the Speaker appoints Representatives Prael, Delperdang, and Helgerson. Speaker recognizes the majority leader for a motion to accede.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Senate did not concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 331. I move that the House accede to the request of the Senate and that a conference committee be appointed.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion passes. As conferees on the part of the House, the Speaker appoints Representatives Rogers, Eric Smith, and Carlin. Speaker recognizes the majority leader for a motion to accede.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Senate did not concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 343. I move the House accede to the request of the Senate and that a conference committee be appointed. I just did 331 a little bit ago.
You've heard the motion to accede on Senate Bill 343. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, no. The motion passes. The conferees and part of the House Speaker appoints Representative Landwehr, Epley, and Susan Ruiz. Speaker recognizes the majority leader for a motion to accede.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Senate did not concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 446. I move the House accede to the request of the Senate and that a conference committee be appointed.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Ayes have it. Motion passes. As conferees on the part of the House, the Speaker appoints Representatives Prael, Delperdang, and Helgerson. Speaker recognizes the majority leader for a motion to accede.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Senate did not concur in the House amendments to Senate Bill 453. I move the House accede to the request of the Senate and that a conference committee be appointed.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion passes. As conferees on the part of the House, Speaker appoints Representatives Landwehr, Epley, and Susan Ruiz.
$261.
Body will stand at ease for just a moment. Speaker recognizes the Majority Leader for a motion to accede.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Senate did not concur in the House amendments to House substitute for Senate Bill 261. I move the House accede to the request of the Senate and that a conference committee be appointed.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Motion passes. As conferees on the part of the House, Speaker appoints Representative Rogers, Eric Smith, and Carlin. Is there any objection to returning to that order of business, introduction of bills and concurrent resolutions? Seeing no objection, the clerk will read.
House Concurrent Resolution Number 5034 by Representatives Murphy, Avercamp, and others, a concurrent resolution stating findings of the Legislature and directing the Joint Committee on Fiduciary Financial Institutions Oversight to study and draft legislation relating to environmental, social, and governance standards.
Body will stand at ease. The House will come back to order. The Speaker recognizes Majority Leader Hawkins for a motion to resolve into the Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the House resolve itself into the Committee of the Whole for the purpose of considering those items under the heading of General Orders.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion carries. Speaker appoints Representative Waymaster to chair the Committee of the Whole.
Good afternoon. The first item of business is Senate Bill 563. For the purpose of carrying Senate Bill 563, the chair recognizes Representative Croft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Substitute for Senate Bill 563 is the Kansas State Senate district maps, and it's the Senate maps only. The Senate used the following criteria when considering and developing their maps. One, they have 40 districts. The total population equaled then each of their district sizes were 73,447. They did have the same deviation authorization of plus or minus 5%. They focused on preserving their communities of interest and trying to keep as many counties as whole. So as you look through it, what I could tell out of it, the whole process that happened was all 40 of their districts fall within the plus or minus 5% deviation. Only 2 districts were beyond the 3% deviation, and that was districts 3 and 5. Only 11 of the 40 districts go beyond 2% deviation. They had about 120,000 in population growth in their cities, which required them to collapse 2 districts. They were able to keep 92 districts or counties whole. They really focused on trying to keep small cities whole as well, but they weren't able to keep them all that way. Their core of their districts, they tried to keep as much as possible in the same as it was today. They did not split as many precincts. They only split 24. And then the new districts that they drew were in Shawnee County and Johnson County. Is the best I could tell in that whole process. The Senate maps passed, and that's it's Liberty 3 was the number, and that was passed 28-8. That was 23 Republicans and 5 Democrats. I'll stand for questions.
All right, thank you. Just to let the Committee of the Whole be aware of that we do have the maps on the clerk's desk. Is there anyone that wishes to speak in regards to Senate Bill 563? The chair recognizes Representative Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I feel a touch of boredom. I rise in strong support of this map.
The chair recognizes Representative Sawyer.
I'm going to rise in support of the map. Traditionally, in the House and Senate, we don't mess with each other's maps. Now, there was an exception 10 years ago, and it didn't work out very well. So I'd urge you to support this bill.
Is there anybody else that wishes to address Senate Bill 563? We'll stand at ease for a moment. The chair recognizes Representative Ralph.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have an amendment.
The amendment looks long. Would you like to explain your amendment?
Yes, Mr. Chair, it is long. Body, at this time, this amendment will insert the language of sub for House Bill 2737 into the current bill, Senate Bill 563. So the language, the amendment is inserting language into the current bill that you have that's being considered at this moment. And as you might expect, it is the bill that we passed on final action earlier today. As I said, sub for House Bill 2737. Stand for questions.
Is there objection to waiving the reading of the amendment? No objection. The chair recognizes Representative Sawyer.
Yeah, could you stand for a question, please? I just want to verify, this amendment is exactly the same map we passed. There's no changes at all.
Identical. There are no changes at all.
Right, thank you. Yeah, I rise in support of the amendment. This will speed the process along and make it easier and give us a little more assurance that the Senate's not going to mess with our map. So.
The chair recognizes Representative Croft.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Body, I view this as a friendly amendment.
Is there any further discussion in regards to the amendment by Representative Ralph? Since there is no further discussion, Representative Ralph, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I close. Move my amendment.
You've heard the motion by Representative Ralph to amend. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. Motion passes. We're back on the bill as amended. Is there any other representative that wishes to speak to Senate Bill 563 as amended? Seeing none, Representative Croft, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Being the last one to cause us to stay here, I apologize. Mr. Chair, I move that when the committee rises and reports substitute for Senate Bill 563 as amended favorably for passage.
You've heard the motion by Representative Croft to report Senate Bill 563 as amended favorably for passage. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. Recognize the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move we rise and report.
You've heard the motion by the Majority Leader to rise and report. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion passes.
Clerk will read the committee report.
Speaker, your committee of the whole recommends substitute for Senate Bill 563 be passed as amended.
Speaker recognizes Representative Waymaster.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move the adoption of the committee of the whole report.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The committee report is adopted. Speaker recognizes Representative Hawkins for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to House Rule 2311, I move that emergency be declared and that substitute for Senate Bill 563 be advanced to that order of business final action on bills and concurrent resolutions.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. Motion passes. Final action on bills and concurrent resolutions. The clerk will read.
Substitute for Senate Bill number 563 by the Committee on Redistricting, and that concerning reapportionment relating to state senatorial districts, providing for the reapportionment thereof.
This constitutes final action on Senate Bill 563. The clerk will open the roll and you may record your vote. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? Roll is still open. Roll is still open, Representative. Has every member had an opportunity to record their vote? Clerk will close the roll. Does any member desire to explain his or her vote? Representative Landwehr on an explanation of vote.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I voted no on this map because of some of the games that have been played in the Senate map, which is what happened 10 years ago. But fortunately, you know, it's passed over here to this body. It's not going to go to the judges, and that's a good thing. And I think it's pretty ridiculous, some of the things that they've done on this map. But at this time, Mr. Chairman, I would like to change my vote to yes.
Representative Landwehr votes aye. Any further explanations of vote? Any member desire to change his or her vote? 112 having voted in favor and 9 against the passage of Senate Bill 563, the same having received a constitutional majority, the bill is hereby declared passed. The clerk will record the vote. Is there objection to returning to that order of business, introduction of bills and concurrent resolutions? Seeing no objection, the clerk will read.
House Concurrent Resolution Number 5035 by Representatives Reichman, Hawkins, and Sawyer. Concurrent resolution relating to the adjournment of the Senate and House of Representatives for a period of time during the 2022 regular session legislature. Be it resolved by the House of Representatives, State of Kansas, Senate concurring therein, that the legislature shall adjourn at the close of business of the daily session convened on March 23rd, 2022, and shall reconvene on March 28, 2022, pursuant to adjournment of the daily session convened on March 23rd, 2022. Be it further resolved that the Chief Clerk of the House of Representatives and the Secretary of the Senate and the employees specified by the Director of Legislative Administrative Services for such purpose shall attend to their duties each day during periods of adjournment, Sundays excepted, for purpose of receiving messages from the governor and conducting such other business as may be required. Be it further resolved that members of the legislature shall not receive the per diem compensation and subsistence allowances provided for in KSA 46-137A and B and amendments thereto for any day within a period in which both houses of the legislature are adjourned for more than 2 days, Sundays excepted. Be it further resolved that members of the legislature attending a legislative meeting of whatever nature, when authorized pursuant to law or by the Legislative Coordinating Council, the President of the Senate or the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the member of a conference committee attending a meeting of the conference committee authorized by the President of the Senate and the Speaker of the House of Representatives during any period of adjournment for which members are not authorized compensation and allowances pursuant to KSA 46-137A and amendments thereto shall receive compensation, subsistence allowances, mileage, and other expenses in amounts prescribed under KSA 75-3212 and amendments thereto.
On HCR 5035, the Speaker recognizes Representative Hawkins for a motion to adopt the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move adoption of 8CR 5035.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, no. The ayes have it. The motion carries. Are there announcements? Representative Schreiber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Since we're going to be gone for a few days here, I wanted to give another reminder about the Special Olympics shrimp peel, which will be the first day of veto session at Monday evening. And I'm renewing my call for any live or silent auction items. I've got a few already. But when you're home this weekend, think of something maybe unique from your particular areas that you'd like to have on a auction. All the money raised by this auction, both the live and the silent, go to Kansas Special Olympics. We'll have Special Olympians there that evening. It's a great event, well attended, so I'll hope I'll have some auction items when you come back on Monday, and you can bring them to my office at 149 South.
And thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you also. This is a fundraiser that the legislature has traditionally helped with for many, many years. Of course, because of COVID, we missed a year or maybe two, but this is very important, and we ask that you please generously support this and come to the event. The event is a lot of fun. Usually former legislators, excuse me, show up also, so please support this, and thank you so much.
Representative Dodson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We've got some visit opportunities, and if anybody's interested in that, please just give me a call. One is to Fort Riley. The division is, all the headquarters is deployed, so they've limited the days to either the 12th or the 13th. So once people contact me, then I'll reconcile that to pick one day or the other when the most are available. So that again is Tuesday and Wednesday, the 12th or the 13th of April. The other opportunity is to visit the National Bio Facility that's in Manhattan on just near KSU. They're going to start transition operations later in the spring into the summer. That will make it much more difficult to visit. That's, we will then have things being transported down from Plum Island, so it'll be hard to get into that facility later. So if you're interested in that visit, again, just let me know, and we'll put out a calendar poll to find the best date that suits everyone. Thank you.
Representative Alcala.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sometimes if things get left unsaid, they get left undone, or they don't get noticed. I'd like to make a brief comment about the statement or the comment that was made today when we had the two young representatives of Native American descent up here speaking about when a representative that was chairing gavelled down and the speaker at the podium said he thought he was getting a tomahawk thrown at him. I just think that we need to be careful in the times that we're in and more sensitive to what we say to people, because it's a totally different era. And people are more educated and more familiar with the history of their culture. And I would say that I think that an apology is due to those two young ladies, maybe one off, but it needs to be said. It was a bad comment. Thank you.
Are there any further announcements? Seeing none, Speaker recognizes Majority Leader Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Body, next week is conference committee week. We'll be doing the usual 10, 2, and 4 pretty every day next week. So we need everybody here on Monday. So with that, Mr. Speaker, I move the House adjourn until Monday, March 28th at 10 a.m.
You've heard the motion. All in favor say aye. All opposed, no. Didn't hear any no's. The ayes have it. The House is adjourned.